So my name is Florence Myles, and I'm a professor of second language acquisition at the University of Essex. But I also, and it's in that capacity that I do this interview today, I'm the chair of RIPPLE, which is the Research in Primary Languages Network, which we're going to discuss the work it's doing today. RIPPLE is a group of researchers and practitioners, and we got together after some workshops a few years ago that we'd organized on learning and teaching languages in primary schools. So during those workshops, teachers told us that research wasn't very accessible to practitioners. It was quite difficult for them to find the time and to get through the jargon of academic papers, but that they also were really interested in finding out more about what research is currently telling us. So after these workshops, we decided to form a network to promote dialogue between researchers, teachers, and policymakers. We strongly believe as a network that research, practice, and policy need to be in constant dialogue and inform one another. So in 2017, we decided to set RIPPLE. And in a nutshell, what RIPPLE does, so we have a website which has lots of information and resources. So for example, we provide one-page jargon-free summaries of research papers. So research of relevance to primary foreign languages learning and teaching. We summarize and put the summaries on our website, and those are extremely popular with teachers and with teacher trainers as well. So we have 50 odd at the moment, and we're adding, as research is published, we are adding to our data bank of summaries. We also organize a number of events. So we organize policy debates, and I'll say a little bit more about that later. We are engaged with policymakers and influencers. So for example, with the DFE, the APPG for Modern Languages, so the All-Party Parliamentary Group for Modern Languages, the British Academy, ASCO, which is the Association of School and College Leaders, the British Council, and so on and so on. We also have a blog and a newsletter, and we run workshops for teachers, for teacher trainers, and so on, and CPD events as well. And recently we've completed a MOOC, which is a massive open online course for teachers and teacher trainers, in which we summarize important research findings about how young children learn languages and the implications for classroom practice. So we've had over 3,000 participants in the MOOC from over 120 countries, showing that there clearly is a need. Well, in 2014, it actually became a statutory requirement to teach foreign languages at Key Stage 2, so from ages 7 to 11. And the expectation of the new policy is that children will make substantial progress in one language, and that when they reach secondary school in Key Stage 3, they will build on the foundation laid at Key Stage 2. However, this new policy gave very few details about expectations, leaving it to schools to set them, and there was no provision for the training or upskilling of primary teachers, either in the language itself or in language teaching pedagogy. So all that was left to schools, who, as we know, are quite short of cash to provide CPD. So many primary teachers found themselves having to deliver foreign language teaching in their classrooms with very limited language skills and no training in how to teach a foreign language. And it very soon became apparent that schools were facing major challenges and that provision was very uneven and patchy up and down the country. It also became apparent that teachers needed support, and we knew that recent research could provide key insights about how children learn, which should inform practice and policy. So we did a series of workshops, but we also, in November 2018, Ripple organized a policy summit where we invited all the major stakeholders in the country to discuss the current situation and ways to improve it based on sound research understanding rather than the latest fad. So we held this policy summit under Chatham House rules, and all major stakeholders took part, ranging from the DFE to Ofsted, the exam board, head teachers associations, business leaders, the British Academy, the British Council, language teachers associations, etc. There was a really, really good turnout, and with people very interested in trying to solve the problem of the new foreign language policy in primary schools. And as I've said before, we strongly believe that policy should be research informed, which is not often the case. So during this summit, we presented current research, and the various stakeholders discussed how it could inform policy. And this is how the white paper was born. So it was co-constructed from discussions at the summit. So the white paper, its aim was to both provide an analysis of the current situation in primary schools and to outline recommendations to address the challenges faced by schools. So we outlined 10 recommendations, and I'll focus on just a few here. A very important one is time allocation. Currently, it's up to school to decide how much time to devote to language teaching. As a result, there is huge variation between schools, from sometimes 15 minutes, 30 minutes when they have time, to more substantial amount of time. And this leads to very uneven provision and lots of children actually being excluded, especially children who might be EAL, English as an additional language, who might have learning difficulties, when in fact they would really benefit from being part of foreign language learning as well. So based on research findings, which have looked at what time is needed to make progress in foreign language, remember the policy says that children should make substantial progress in the foreign language they're learning. We recommend that a minimum of 1 hour per week throughout the school year is necessary for substantial progress to be made. And it's important that this is kept constant. It's not the first thing to go when there's a sports day, and so on. The continuity and the repetition is very important. So that's one of our recommendations about allocating sufficient time, a minimum of 1 hour. Another very important recommendation is about training. Training is crucially important. Many primary school teachers are desperate for training in both the language they're teaching, that might be very rusty, they might have an old GCSE or something like that, and also in how to teach it. Teaching a foreign language is quite different from teaching other subjects. And we believe that both initial teacher training should be provided, as well as a CPD, continuous professional development. Research has shown that a minimum of AS level is necessary for teachers to feel confident and for teaching to be effective. So training is crucially important, and it needs to be provided and available, and not for schools to struggle to find cash to be able to send teachers to be trained. Now, another thing that comes up time and time again when we speak to teachers is about two related things: curriculum planning on the one hand and transition. So curriculum planning, having a sense of where children should get to throughout primary school and into secondary school, is very important. Research has shown that if children do not have a sense of the progress they make in the language they're learning, then they become demotivated and they switch off. So therefore, it's important to have clear progression built into the curriculum across the key stages. Children arriving in year 7 do not want to start again from scratch, and they find it incredibly frustrating and demotivating if they have to. So a very important recommendation is to look at transition and to look at ways of making the transition between primary and secondary as smooth as possible so that children do not get demotivated. Now, another recommendation arising from our research is about the importance of school leadership and school accountability. There is lots of good practice going on in the country. As we've said before, it's very patchy. Invariably, when schools are doing really well with their language teaching provision, they have a school leadership which is which thinks foreign language learning and teaching is very important, and who allocate sufficient time, train teachers, and so on. So this is very important, and schools should really be made accountable when they do not provide foreign language learning and teaching. It needs to be part of the primary curriculum as it was intended to be, rather than an added on when schools have time. We all know that time is a major issue for primary schools, but we really strongly believe that foreign language learning and teaching is really important and is really good for the children in a range of ways, not just so that they learn a foreign language. And finally, maybe the last recommendation I would like to mention briefly is that we recommend the setting up of a national task force for primary languages. So the role of this task force would be to address the challenges faced by schools and teachers, which I've briefly mentioned, but to do that in a coordinated manner. There's lots of good things happening at the moment, but they're very, very patchy. They're not necessarily readily available and so on. And the task force would also support the successful implementation of the statutory foreign language requirements. So it would be a bit a coordinating body that makes sure that the policy is actually implemented. So maybe to finish and to sum up, we really welcome this new policy, and we do think it can work, but that more support and guidance needs to be provided for schools and teachers for them to make a success of it.